Ready? Okay. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the May meeting of the North Point Peninsula Council. It's great to see so many new faces and familiar faces. And we're going to start the meeting off, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Praise the Lord. There he is, top champ.
It makes it a little easier to hear if we use the mic. So we have a really interesting presentation tonight, and it's something that we can all take some pride in our area. A lot of places don't have this special amenity. We'll find out more about it in just a little while. We're going to get started, though, with our police report from Officer Briggs.
All right, your police report is for your crime stats are from April 3rd to April 30th. 213 calls for service, 49 reports written, no narcotics, no overdoses, no robberies. You had one theft of auto, that was on Thomas Lane. A motorcycle was stolen by unknown means. You had one burglary, and that was on the 7400 block of Hammond Road, and that was a subject under the property to try to car door handle on the property. They weren't able to gain entry. And then the theft from auto that you had one of those. That was also on Hammond Road. The same subject from the burglary tried car door handles on another property and was able to gain entry into one of those. And one of the car doors was either left ajar or one of the key fobs was left inside, allowing it to be unlocked, and items were stolen from that. Other stuff that you had, there was a fatal fire on Millers Island Boulevard. FIB is investigating on that, but we don't have any information as to possible cause of the fire. You had a first-degree assault on North Point Road and Roger Road. That was a road rage incident. Car passed a pedal bike, and evidently the pedal biker didn't think there was enough room given, and words were said. Words led to the driver of the vehicle pulling a gun and threatening the biker. I guess careful what you say, I don't know. That is still being investigated by our in-house detectives. You had another first-degree assault. This was at the Sail and Bar on Lincoln Avenue. A little bit of a scuffle broke out inside the bar between a couple people, and somebody did the old movie-style broken bottle to threaten the other person. So that happened. I didn't think that really happened in real life. Evidently somebody did it. Maybe they were watching too many movies beforehand. And then the only other thing that you had of consequence was there was an actual shots fired call around the area of North Point Road, Sparrows Point Road. The way it sounds is there was a BMW that may have been doing donuts in the intersection with some cars in the surrounding area watching those cars, and maybe the BMW. The investigation's still ongoing with this one. One of the vehicles, or several of the vehicles, started shooting rounds off in the area, either in that intersection or surrounding area of the intersection. Multiple rounds were shot. Officers found live and spent shell casings in the area, and then several people had reported bullet holes in their vehicles as a result of this. And then that's still an ongoing investigation as well.
Where'd you say that would happen?
North Point and Sparrows Point. North Point Road, Sparrows Point. I'm sorry?
By the elementary school?
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
What time of night was that?
You know what? I did not take notice of the night, but it was like after the midnight hour time frame. It was not like during the day or anything like that. It was like around midnight or like after midnight.
That's the one there's video of, right?
I think there is video of it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They posted it.
Because I think there's a couple businesses that bid. I think there is a couple, if I can speak correctly, a couple businesses in the area that were able to catch some of the video, some video of the incident. But I think that some of the actual shots fired were far enough away where they're hitting, the detectives are hitting some of the houses looking for home surveillance cameras and stuff as well. Because I think some of the incidents where shots were heard were far enough away from the intersection that the local businesses may or may not have caught some of them. So, like I said, it is an ongoing investigation. Yes, ma'am.
Can you remind people again about that database they can call in there?
Yes, so if anybody does have home surveillance cameras that they want to register with our office, we do keep a database on file. It's not something you can go online and register directly, but if you want to email me directly with your home information, how many cameras you have, whether it's something that's kept online through Xfinity or Verizon, or something that you keep in-house at your home on a server at home, we can definitely put that on a registration, and we have on file. But usually officers do, as soon as they get onto a scene, especially something like that, they're looking at houses to see who has cameras that are visible. Not all of them are readily visible, so having it on in the database is helpful. So if anybody does want to register it, they can definitely contact me. I know you guys have it on your website or your social media. I think you have my contact information, and if not, you guys can definitely reach out. I'm available. So yeah.
Yeah, people ask for your contact, we just give it to them.
Absolutely,
Yep.
absolutely. And email's definitely the better way. Like all week this week, I've been in training, so I've been out of the office all week. I'll be at Delaney Valley tomorrow, so I won't be back in the office until Monday of next week. So email is always the best, so that I've always got it sitting there, and that way I can correspond back and forth. So, anything else?
That's it. Thank you, Chris.
Well, you all enjoy your evening. Enjoy what you got for your presenter, and I will see you all again. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Okay, that was probably one of the lengthiest police reports we've had in a good while. So hopefully next month things will settle down just a tad. So we'll welcome our speaker now. It's Dr. Catherine Sterner. She's an assistant professor from Towson University. She's also the director of the Baltimore Community Archaeology Lab. And we met her last summer when she had some students and actually invited some community members to go help with an archaeological dig up in the farm field. So we invited her here to share with some of the really cool stuff she found. And again, welcome.
She's
okay.
going to
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Hi, thank you so much, Brent, for inviting me. I'm really glad I could make it out here, especially before we return to the park in a few weeks here. So, my name's Kat Sterner. I've been a professor at Towson University for this is my 5th year, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the work that has been done previously archaeologically in North Point State Park, and then the work that I did with my students last summer, and then a little bit about what we're going to do this summer. So, you know, and then I'm happy to take questions, and I brought some artifacts from the park that I'm happy to share with everybody. So, the first thing that I want to mention is that there's a lot of archaeological sites in the park. So when the land that is now North Point State Park was acquired by the DNR to become a park, they are required, whenever the state acquires land, they're required to conduct an archaeological survey to see if there are any sites on that land so they know what resources they need to be taken care of. So in 1988, what was then the Maryland Geological Survey is now housed by the Maryland Historical Trust, conducted a survey of all of the property that was going to be acquired by the park. And they identified several archaeological sites. 11 of those are pre-contact sites. And what I mean by that is pre-European archaeological sites, which is my area of interest. There's several Euro-American sites in the park as well, but I'm going to focus a little bit less on those. because we're most interested in the Native American sites. And then we focused our investigations on 2 of those sites, which I'm gonna try not to trip myself here, but try to show you which ones. So these are the outlines of all of the sites here, and we focused on these 2, which have site numbers 18BA364, which is the Bob Inman site, and 18BA362, which is the Shallow Creek site. And we spent most of our time at Shallow Creek. So, many of you are probably familiar with the history of the park, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But the land was originally platted to Thomas Todd in 1605. Prior to that is what we're researching right now, so I'll give you a little bit more insight on that in a minute. By the 1780s, the land was split up into multiple plantations. The Todd family still held some of that, as well as the Shaws and Goodwin. We're all familiar probably with what went on during the War of 1812. And then starting in 1906, you have Bayshore Amusement Park in the area, which it runs until the land is purchased by Bethlehem Steel in 1947. And then fortunately for us, Bethlehem Steel ended up not doing anything with the land, just kind of sat there, and then it was purchased by the state in 1987. So when I was deciding to come work in North Point State Park, I knew that I wanted to conduct an archaeological field school with my students, and a field school is where archaeology students learn the basics of how to excavate sites, how to record information, how to identify artifacts, all that sort of thing that they need in their profession. So the basics you need to get a job, an entry-level job as an archaeologist, which I know most people probably don't think is a job, but that's there's actually a lot of people that do that in the United States for a living. You just need a bachelor's degree in history or anthropology, and then you need this archaeological field school, right? So I wanted to do that, but I wasn't sure exactly where, and I wanted it to be local. And the state terrestrial archaeologist, Zach Singer, kind of clued me onto the sites in North Point. And so I spent the winter kind of wandering around, checking out a few of the areas that I thought might be suitable for us to work at. When you're running an archaeological field school, what you don't want is a site that doesn't have any artifacts, because that's a sin nobody wants to, that's a bummer when you're first starting out your archaeological career, if you go to a site that there's not much left. So I did some preliminary surveys to identify if there were still intact deposits. These were sites that were identified in 1988. That's a lot, it's 40 years of farming since then, and a lot of erosion. So I wanted to make sure there was still some stuff left before I committed, 15 students to spending 6 weeks out there. So we did what we call a pedestrian survey, which, how many of you guys have ever walked agricultural fields looking for artifacts? Anybody ever done that? A couple people, yeah. So that's basically what we do. We stand spaced every 5 meters or so, and then you just walk the rows, preferably when there's nothing growing in them, like there is in this picture, and you look for any artifacts that have been brought to the surface by plowing. And this gives us a distribution of where the artifacts are on the surface. And wherever there are artifacts on the surface, there's probably more of them under the ground. So we were going to use that as well as another method that we call shovel testing. So when you can't see the ground surface, it hasn't been plowed, you can dig a bucket-sized hole in the ground and see if you find anything in there. So it gives you a sample to see if there's any artifacts in that area. So we wanted to use those methods to refine the site boundaries for the 2 sites that have been identified in 1988. And I wanted to determine if there were any what we call subsurface features present at either site. So we know there are artifacts there, right? We see them on the surface, but they're all churned up by the plow, right? So the places that the artifacts are today is probably not where they were when people originally dropped them 1,000 to 8,000 years ago, right? So we're most interested in artifacts that are still in place where people placed them, that haven't been disturbed by the plow or erosion or something like that. And so those undisturbed contexts are what we call features. So things like trash pits or house floors or something like that that's still preserved underneath the plow zone. So we wanted to see if there were any of those there. And then lastly, we wanted to identify what time period we're talking about, like when these sites were occupied, and possibly what people were doing at them, right, what the function was. So we did some initial shovel testing in April, and this was, so initially we weren't at these two sites. We were at another site a little bit closer to the visitor center that I now refer to as the Poison Ivy site. And we will not be returning there ever again. So the Park Service helpfully was like, we're going to burn it all off. I was like, that doesn't actually help. The roots are all still there. So thank you, but no thank you. It's just going to come back, even stronger. So the Poison Ivy site luckily did not bear a lot in the way of artifacts, so I didn't feel too bad abandoning that. So then I was starting to get a little nervous because I was like, where are we going to do our work this summer? Not in this Poison Ivy patch. So we did an initial pedestrian survey of these fields that Jason Krankowski had very kindly just plowed up for the first time in 15 years. And there was a lot of stuff. So on May 11th, I was like, oh, okay, we've got a place that we're going to be working. And so then our first field session started May 30th. Those students were out there until June 26th when we switched to our second set of students. We had 6 students in each of the field sessions. So I already talked a little bit about the survey methods that we use. So when we're doing pedestrian survey, it's just like what you see here. Folks are lined up. They're spaced every 5 meters, which is pretty high density. The goal is not to find every single artifact. The goal is to get a statistical distribution of where the artifacts are on the ground. So when people see something, they mark it with a flag, and then they leave it there. And what happens next is once we've finished surveying the field, we come back through, we take a GPS point at each of those flags, and we collect the artifacts. And that way we have a GPS record of where each of those artifacts came from. Because even though they've been mixed up a little bit by the plow, studies have shown that they haven't probably moved more than 6 to 10 feet at the most from their original location. So if there's 50 artifacts within a 5-foot area, there's probably a pretty high density deposit under the ground as well, right? So that's what we're looking for, is to see where those distributions are. And then if you're not lucky enough to be in an area that is recently plowed, then you gotta use shovel testing, which we do at a slightly higher interval. We don't need to do it every 5 meters, do it every 10 meters. So if your ground visibility is less than 50%, then we're doing shovel testing. So what we ended up with is we excavated 151 shovel tests. Only 29 of them were positive. So not a lot of bang for your buck there, but it builds moral character. So they excavated 151 shovel tests, which gave us an idea of how far the site boundaries extend beyond the plowed fields, which is not far. Right? They seem to be pretty well confined to the plowed fields. And then we surveyed 28 acres via pedestrian survey. We found 556 pre-European artifacts and 2 archeological sites. So you can see on the map here that all of these blue dots are GPS points that we took from when we field collected the artifacts. The yellow lines show the original site boundaries that were recorded in 1988. So you can see that a lot of our finds were outside of those original site boundaries. So we were able to refine those site boundaries a little bit more. There's also these this lightly shaded area here, and this shaded area there, those are plowed out shell middens. So somebody had a big clam bake and dumped all of their oyster shells in a pit and then ran a plow through it, several thousand years later, and now they're spread out across the field here. And the size of the blue dots shows you the number of artifacts that were collected from that spot, right? So this is a gigantic one, so there were like 10 from there. So you can see there's a key down here, 10 for a gigantic circle, 1 for a tiny circle. So what you can see is that here's the 2 sites that have been previously identified, and then we were walking the field between the 2 sites, and we found a 3rd site that was definitely spatially distinct from the 2 that had been previously identified there, which we were pretty excited about, especially because it was so dense, and it did have one of those plowed out shell middens as well. So, oh, that's okay, I'll just climb up. Thank you, though. So, in terms of the artifacts that we found, I'll just kind of give you a bit of a breakdown. We found 38 pieces of pottery. So, and this is just from the surface collection. So, we did some additional excavations at the Shallow Creek site, which is BA 362, the bottom one there. Where we found a lot more materials from excavation. So you can see that there's almost no pottery from the site that's closer to the road there, and there's a ton of pottery from the new site, which is named after, we just got a site number and a name for it, the Krankowski site, thanks Jason. And the Shallow Creek site's got some pottery there down on the southern end. In terms of chipped stone, so at this time, pre-European arrival, folks are making most of their tools out of stone. So the artifacts that we're finding are either stone tools or the debris from making those stone tools. And you can see that we've got a pretty decent amount of that as well. This shows you the distribution map, right? So unlike the pottery, which had very different densities between the 3 sites, but what we can say here is people are making and using stone tools at all 3 sites at pretty much the same rate. No major differences between the sites there. And then what we call ground stone tools. So these are tools that instead of chipping them to make them into the shape that you want, you kind of pack them and then grind them into the shape that you want. So things like axes, adzes, hammer stones, grinding stones, instead of things like spear points, knives, arrowheads. So you can see that there's definitely some differences here as well. So the new site, the Krankowski site in the middle there, has very few ground stones, so a ton of pottery, not much ground stone. The other 2 sites are kind of the opposite, not much pottery, a lot of ground stone. So what that suggests to me is different functions for those sites, right? If you have different tools in different parts of your house, then you expect to be doing different things in those areas, right? So the same thing here, different tools in different areas. So the other thing that we did was we conducted a ground penetrating radar survey. And we did this because those sites are really big, and I did not want to be wasting a ton of time putting shovels in the ground all over the place for excavation units and a ton of Jason's soybeans. So I tried to destroy as few soybeans as possible. So we did this ground penetrating radar survey to try to identify subsurface anomalies. So the way that this works is a ground penetrating radar machine, if you ever see, actually I'll be back out there doing a GPR survey again in 2 weeks. So if you take a peek over there, it looks like I'm pushing a lawnmower. Sometimes I'll like kick it along because it gets stuck. It's like a $15,000 piece of equipment, but it's very tough, it'll be fine. And you walk in a straight line and you set up a grid and you walk every 25 centimeters, so not very far, your transects are about this far apart, so you make sure that there's no space between each of your runs. So you walk in a line this way, and then once you finish that line, you do the next one, and and then you do the next one, so that you scan this whole area. And what it does is it shoots radar waves down into the ground, and if there is an object or a change in the soil density, those radar waves will bounce back at a different rate than they would if the soil density is consistent the whole way through. So most people, I think that ground penetrating radar shows you like a skull or something. It doesn't. It looks like that. On the bottom there is what it shows me. So a bunch of kind of humpy looking wobbly lines, but I can tell what those are, or if there's something significant. So we did two 20 by 20 meter grids, and I did them after we had already excavated two 2 by 2 meter units, which you can see really nicely on that bottom. We filled our units back in when we're done, and then I ran a GPR over them, and you can see two really nice square units. So it's a great check to make sure that it really is working. It really is. It detected our 2 units. And we also saw a few other anomalies popping up here. These are relatively small, but there's a dot there, a few other dots here, and then this big guy in the corner of one of our other grids. So we decided to use these to help guide our unit excavations, because unit excavations take a lot more time than shovel tests, because we make sure we keep everything flat, we record everything as we go down, so it's a lot more time and energy commitment. So this is what the excavation methods look like. We typically excavate in 2 by 2 meter units. I'm a metric person. And our first units are excavated entirely in 10 centimeter levels. So what that means is you dig down 10 centimeters, then you stop. You make sure you have a nice clean dirt floor like that, and you take a picture, you draw a map of any soil color differences, and then you go down another 10 centimeters. And we do that until we get into this, what we call the B horizon soil. So you can see, if you look at the wall here, you've got kind of this mottled brownish soil up top, and then this reddish soil on the bottom. Once you get into that reddish soil, there's no organics in that soil, there's no cultural materials, so you know that you're not going to be finding any more artifacts. So that's where you can stop. And we did that for our first units just to give students practice. After that, we just removed the plow zone as one big chunk. So that brownish layer at the top is what we call the plow zone. That's the area that's been churned up by the plow. And then anything under that is what we call the B horizon soil. This area has been plowed for so long that there is no A horizon soil left. There's no organics left. We were basically farming in silt. And any of you who do any farming are probably like, yeah, I know. It's really hard. And in addition to that, because this area has not been plowed, they've been doing no-till for so long, that plow zone has been eroding away. So what would normally be about 8 inches thick is only about 4 inches thick now, because they haven't plowed it in at least 15 years, according to Jason. So that means that all that soil, every time there's a big storm, just washes down to the low points and off of the high points. So that significantly impacts how much soil is left and what kind of archaeological deposits are left in that soil. Otherwise, what happens is soil is very light. The little particles will just wash away and the artifacts just fall down right where they are, right? So the artifacts might still be there, but the feature that contained them is gone, is washed away, and soil stain. So we mostly excavate with shovels, and then we trowel clean in between layers. And then when we were sure that we were in the B horizon, this is a practice that I started once when I worked on a dune site where we had many, many layers deeply buried underneath these airborne dune deposits. I started excavating a shovel test in the corner of our units, to go another, meter or so deep, just to make sure I didn't miss anything weird that was deeply buried there. So that's what's going on with that deep pit in what is otherwise a nice square hole. Is anytime before we decide to move on, we excavate that kind of check. So what do we find from our excavations? We excavated 44 square meters, 11 units, and this is what we found. So this is on top of the 500 some artifacts that we found from surface collection. This all came from excavation. You can kind of see the contour lines and the excavation units on the map here. So the color is based on the density of artifacts that were found. So the brighter the color, the more reddish, higher density, the yellow, not so much in terms of the material culture that we found. And so you can see there's mostly chipstone debris from making stone tools, as well as a lot of tiny little chunks of pottery. It's definitely been pretty bashed up by the plow. And then a few chipstone tools and groundstone tools, right? But mostly debris and pottery, which is pretty typical for most excavations. Okay, so a lot of archaeology is about dirt. And a lot of archaeology is about understanding the environmental context and the sort of context of the site development. So the first thing that we do when we know we're going to be working on a site is we look at the USGS soil survey to see what the typical soils are in the area. And what the soil survey says is this, right? So you've got what's called an AP, your plow zone, that is the first 11 inches, and then underneath that you have a B horizon. Bam, that's what we've got, right? It shows up just like that, plow zone and a B horizon. Except for the fact that we're missing about 8 inches of soil according to USGS, right? So those 8 inches have eroded away. So that's 8 inches of archaeological site that's gone, essentially, from all of these 400 years of farming. In addition to that, we've got some weird stuff going on in some of the areas of the site, right? So that, I'll show you guys on the next slide, that area that we found the big anomaly with the ground penetrating radar, it turned out to be this layer. So as you can see, this profile does not look the same as this profile, even though they're in the same site, right? They should look the same. But instead, we've got this sort of cemented calcite layer. I couldn't tell you, my husband's a geologist, he couldn't tell you why it's there. We're still working that part out. And then you have these cool bedded sand layers underneath that. So what we're seeing is that there's a large amount of variability horizontally on the landscape in what the soils look like. So this is what it kind of looked like in plan view, where you have that weird grayish color coming out in those orange B horizon soils, right? So we ground truthed that big anomaly that looked like that on the ground penetrating radar, and it gave us almost no artifacts and a bunch of weird, really hard to dig soil. So that was a big bummer. But we learned a lot about these site formation processes. Stay positive. So that gave us a better idea of these sort of things typically happen when you have areas that are waterlogged for a long period of time. And so that's what that's telling us, is that this area of the site was waterlogged over long periods. And probably wasn't very heavily occupied as a result, because no one likes to be wet when they're sleeping. Pottery that we found while we were doing excavation. So most of the pottery that we found came from excavation at BA 362, which is the Shallow Creek site, but we did find some from surface collection at the Krankowski site. And there were some pottery sherds, and if you come up and take a look later, I can show you some of these. There were some of them that are what we call temporally diagnostic. So tell us about, they have design characteristics that tell us about a particular time period. So we can date them to a particular time period based on the style. So all of these are what we call late woodland, which means that they were made in the last 1,000 years, basically, sometime between AD 900 and 1650. All of them except one, the archeological shirt, is earlier. That's an early woodland, which is a few thousand years old. Then, in addition to that, we also have some temporally diagnostic spear points, or arrowheads, so what we call projectile points. And you can see that we have those from all 3 sites, and there's a range of time periods that are covered here. Most, definitely the heaviest occupation, again, between AD 900 and 1650, but there are also folks there in the Middle Woodland at both of the original 2 sites that were documented, which is going back to about 3,000 years ago. And then at the Krankowski site, it goes back as far as the late Archaic, which is as far back as about 6,000 years ago. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. We found 2 things that I could call cultural features. So, again, features are these immovable artifacts, things that you can't just pick up and take with you back to the lab. So things like trash pits or burials, we didn't find any of those, or house floors, right? Can't take them with you. So we found, and typically they are, you identify them based on soil color differences, because if you have a bunch of trash sitting in a pit for a long time, it's your compost heap, right? The soil that's inside the pit is going to be a different color than what's outside if it's been disturbed. So we found this circular shape. You can kind of see the outline there. I drew that handy dandy line because it was pretty hard to see. There were no artifacts in it, much to our dismay, and it had an oval-shaped plan. So we thought that it was going to turn out to be, we kind of caught it in the corner of a unit. So we added another unit on kind of L shape to try to capture the rest of it. And instead of it being a nice big circle, it ended up being more kind of elongated. I don't know what that means. Sometimes burials are elongated, but there weren't any bones in this one. So there's nothing really to tell us what the function of it was. We did get some charcoal from it, and once I rustle up some money, we'll get a radiocarbon date and see if that gives us an idea of how old it is, at least. There is an overlapping burnt soil area where the soil is this reddish color that you can tell that someone had a fire on top of it. The other feature that we found was this kind of amorphous soil stain with what looked like a bunch of little post holes. So you can see there's 4 circles that are outlined here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, those are identified by charcoal concentrations. Sometimes people burned the ends of their posts to keep them from rotting. Or sometimes when people left, they burned the house in place. And you have charcoal showing up in post molds for that reason. Again, no extra artifacts, but we do have those charcoal concentrations. So again, I'm hopefully going to be dating those eventually. So what does this all tell us? We've got 2 sites that are occupied during the Middle and Late Woodland period, so starting at AD 50 all the way up till slightly before Europeans came. We don't have any evidence that the folks who were living at these sites were here and interacting with Europeans. There's no trade goods or anything like that, so they were gone before Europeans showed up. They moved somewhere else. There's one site, the Krankowski site, that was occupied during the late woodland period, but also had a much earlier occupation, so dating to the late Archaic, so that's between 3750 to 1250 BC. So we're talking about 4,000, 5,000 years ago. There's also what we call a buried A horizon at the Krankowski site. What that means is that the plow zone that used to be at the top of the hill, so instead of having that 4-inch plow zone that we have in most places on the site, the plow zone here is about 2 feet deep, and that's because all of the plow zone that was at the top of the hill is now at the bottom of the hill and has buried this layer underneath it. So you can kind of see this dark colored layer here at the bottom. So we dug a couple shovel tests in the Krankowski site just to see what the stratigraphy would look like there, and we found that. That's a good sign. That means that at that particular location, down off the top of the hill, there's still some intact soils that haven't all eroded away. So that's a good sign for future work. So speaking of future work, I have a grant from the Maryland Historical Trust to conduct some additional work this summer. So we were initially going to do a ground penetrating radar survey and excavations at the Krankowski site, where we found that buried A horizon. The construction of the park is kind of, we're going to work at the Bob Inman site instead. So we've rearranged the location that we're going to be at. We're going to do that ground penetrating radar survey to help us again narrow down where we might be able to find some intact subsurface deposits. I'm going to do that in 2 weeks here. And then in June, starting June 9th, I have 5 students that are going to be out with me. We're going to be excavating some 2x2 meter units. And then the week of June 23rd through the 27th, we're conducting a workshop for 20 K-12 teachers to come out and do archaeology with us and learn how to infuse archaeology into their lesson plans. So kind of half days in the field, half days at the visitor center working on lesson plan seeds. And this gives them 3 MSD continuing professional development credits for teachers. So, and we also have consultants coming in from the Pocomoke and the Piscataway Conoy as well to consult with us on this project. So we're pretty excited about that and looking forward to hopefully continuing to do this. We've already had a lot of requests from other teachers to do this kind of work in the future. So I just got my right of entry permit from the state park, so we're looking forward to being out there in the next couple weeks. But that is where we're at so far. This is the turtle that was constantly infiltrating where we had all of our gear on site. That was actually on top of a pile of shovels, and he climbed up on this log right by our shovels one day. So I have some acknowledgments here, especially my students and the places we've gotten funding from the Park Service, and Jason Krankowski for letting us trample some of his beans, and Todd's Inheritance as well for really supporting the work that we're doing and letting us come and check out their site as well. So thank you.
Questions?
Yeah.
Do you plan on checking the forest around the area?
The forest?
Yes.
Oh yeah, we shovel tested the forest. It was not very exciting.
Have you found anything in the forest?
We did not. No, I was kind of surprised. I was hoping that it would be more intact because it wouldn't have eroded as much, and that is true. There is more soil there, not more artifacts though. Yeah.
Are you able to tell what kind of Indians you're talking about now?
That's a great question. So the short answer is no, because these are folks that are living here prior to any of the historically documented tribes in the area. So I can say that historically the folks that were living in this area were either Piscataway or Susquehannock. But the folks that are living in North Point State Park are living there 100 years before anyone has documented his, written record of those tribes. So while the Piscataway may have been the Piscataway by then, they might have gone by a different name or different identity. So, unless we found anything that specifically tied them to the Piscataway. We don't have that for certain, but that's why we're consulting with the Piscataway, because they're the closest we can get. Yeah.
Do you know if they were permanent residents or just summer?
It's a great question. So because we do the best way to tell that would be if we had things like animal bone or seeds or something like that from the site. That would tell us seasonality. Because we are in coastal plain soils, I'm confident that those soils are so acidic they would have eaten any organic material that is on the site. So we didn't find any organic materials like bone, animal bone, or other than charcoal. So hopefully this year we might find some more intact deposits. The only other way we might be able to determine that, and I am not an oyster shell expert, but yeah, if we can look at the growth rings on the oyster shells, we might be able to get at that information. So I did collect a nice big sample of oyster shells that we'll take a, if I can convince somebody to take a look at them. I gotta find an oyster shell guy, but yeah, great question. Yeah.
So, did you find any like textile fragments, and what would they wear? If they were in the area?
That's a great question. So, no, did not find any textile fragments. Again, the organic preservation is just terrible. But we did, if they were wearing things, it was probably mostly deer hides. Is what we see folks making. They are making nets and woven fabric that we see them impressing into their pottery. So that's the closest that we would have for traces of that sort of thing. And those are being made out of reed fibers. So yeah, it's a mixture of animal and plant materials.
So would this be like against the skin? Because like, if it would be leather against the skin, did they like have anything to prevent like shaving, or did they just kind of?
That's a Piscataway elder question. That one I do not know. But also note that we're talking, these are certainly at least summer sites. Probably only summer sites would be my thought. Again, especially based on the big oyster dumps. Folks are mostly living by the water in large groups in the summertime, and then they break up into small groups and move into the headwaters in the uplands in the wintertime, in which case probably not wearing much of anything because it's hot and muggy, so that's less of an issue. Yeah.
When you do your next excavations in June, can the public come observe any of that, or is it closed?
So I really hope so. I have to coordinate with the construction folks. So I now have to buy hard hats for all my teachers, which is a new development. But I'm hoping that I can, the short answer is I really, really hope yes. But I have yet to talk to the actual construction company that's out there. So I have a right of entry agreement with the State Park Service, but the interplay between the state government and the construction is very complicated. And so I thought that rather than trying to go through 6 levels of bureaucracy, I'm going to wait till I get out there with my GPR in 2 weeks and try to cozy in and say, hey, can I bring the public out? Because we had great luck doing that last time, and I really want folks to be able to
If that happens, are you able to contact us and we can?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I'll be in touch with Fran and make sure that everybody gets the word. Yeah.
2 questions. Are there any local teachers going to be involved with the dig?
We've got some folks from Howard County. Unfortunately, so I am collaborating with 2 Wicomico County teachers to offer this program. So they did not realize when we planned it that Baltimore County Public Schools have paid professional development 2 days of this week. So we got no Baltimore County Public School teachers, which I was super bummed about. We do have 1 teacher from the Archdiocese of Baltimore, We've got a couple Howard County folks, one Hartford County. So we've got some local folks. I'd say it's probably kind of half and half with Howard, Hartford, and then a lot of Eastern Shore folks.
It would be great to hear what their reactions are when it's over.
Yeah.
See what they've got. The second thing, what happens to everything that you find?
It belongs to the state. So when I get a permit, I have many permits that I have to get to work on state property. One of them is a state terrestrial archaeology permit, which stipulates that all of the artifacts that we find go to the Maryland Archaeological Conservation Lab when we're done, which is the state archaeological repository. So that's in Calvert County at Jefferson Patterson Park, so it's a bit of a hike. They don't have, so the requirement is technically, unless I have ongoing work going on with the artifacts, I'm supposed to send them within a year, which is no good because I'm not done with them yet. So long as I have ongoing work there, I can make the argument that I need to keep them at TU. And we can certainly, I know that we've talked about having a display or something at Todd's, and I think that I know the folks at the state park are also interested in potentially putting something at the visitor center. So those are all things that we can totally explore. It requires a great deal of paperwork and conversation, but ultimately, the property of the landowner, so they go back to the state whenever I'm done with them, and then if I want to keep them longer, then I have to request that. Yeah.
Any other questions, guys? Well, that was very interesting.
Thank you.
Especially looking for Well, I'll scoot through this real quick, and then everybody can come up.
And some people online have asked me to show a picture of it. So after at the end of the meeting, I'll film the artifacts. Or
Yeah, that was really great. I mean, we all say newcomers. That kind of puts that all in perspective. We're all newcomers in some respect. Just touch on a couple of things that we've talked about. I know we missed our meeting last month. Ed's going to give us an update on that sewer project that's going through the Hall Road that we've talked about.
Basically, nothing has changed since our last email that was about 2 months ago. And I mean, it's on hold, but it's still a go for the project, but they haven't told us when they're starting. So that's where we're at on that project.
That new paper on the Hall Road says that if you want to write in, there's a new date on it. It's like July 1st or July 3rd of this year.
Okay.
Just to let you know.
For comments?
For comments or if you have any kind of gripes about
That
it.
guy, Dave Bayer's probably one of the best county employees I've ever met. I mean, the guy was so informative.
So there's a rumor that they're going to be building along there. Is that true?
No, not that we've ever heard. So the issue with the Hall Road right now is that, according to that letter, it's an ownership issue. So the state is they have to do something to be able to own the Hall Road. That might not be part of what they have right now. So if you stop by any of the gates, I think they all have the paper on it, and you can read it. And the comments they're looking for, I think, is if you have a claim to the property, that kind of thing. I don't think it's about the sewer project, but it could be. But anyway, stop by if you want to read the letter.
Just to reiterate, what was told to me was that this project does nothing for development or adding to. It's just an upgrade to the system.
Yeah, how the rumor mill goes.
Correct.
Yep. So we have another guest tonight. His name is Mr. Mansour Shams, and he is the Parks Outreach Coordinator for Baltimore County Rec and Parks. And we met him a few weeks ago at another meeting, and we invited him to come and just introduce himself and maybe say a few words about some things that are going on in Rec and Parks.
Good
My name is Mansoor Shams. My more experienced counterpart is not here, so I'll try to do my best. But I serve as the department's community engagement and outreach officer. I joined several months ago. Our background, I served in the Marines for a few years, did some work in the federal government, ran a business, did some public affairs stuff, and somehow I landed here at the Department of Recreation and Parks. So I just wanted to sort of give maybe 3 things that come to mind. Hopefully that will be helpful. One was to make sure that you have a connecting point. I think what I've realized in this role over the last some months as I'm getting emails from all sorts of people, from all sorts of backgrounds, that people, you know, they want to bring up an issue or concern, and they want to make sure that they're heard. And my job, one of my responsibilities is to make sure that they are heard. So I'm doing my best to do that. So I say that so you also know who I am. Francis has my information, but I'm happy to give that to you as, before I leave from here. The second thing is that have you heard of the newsletter for the Department of Recreation and Parks? Has anyone heard of the newsletter? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I'd love to get you registered. So essentially, over the course of the last several months, there's a lot of innovations that have come for the good of the community. One of them has been a newsletter, essentially letting all of you know what is going on around the county when it comes to recreation and parks. It's like it has a calendar, it has like new stuff, potential projects coming up, things that everyone would want to know. So if you have your phones, the one simple way of doing it is Googling Baltimore County Recreation and Parks, and as soon as you click on that, it'll say sign up for newsletter. All it asks for is 4 pieces of information: name, email, I think, and zip code. And I think you subscribe and you're in. And the last piece I wanted to make sure before I forget is if you have any concerns, I'm not sure if I can give you the best answer right now, but if there are concerns, I'm definitely able to take them back and get you an answer. Yes, please.
I have one online, which I imagine you have heard many times. A lot of people are asking about a fence around the new playground at the new park.
Very interesting that you say that. So interesting. I'm so glad though, because I was just in a meeting with our deputy director, Courtney Whitestock, and then I think a lot of people know our director, Bob Smith. And Bob walked in. So it's myself, Courtney. He was like, this may come up. And
Yeah.
he said specific, if he hadn't walked in, I probably was like, what are you talking about? But he walked in and he said, yes, that is something that he is working on as we speak. He's like, they should know that we are working on that. I think there's a financial element side, there's a planning side, there's all sorts of rules and regulations. But yes, it is something that is being very closely worked on. You mentioned that there is a road, essentially, that puts the kids in danger, right? By the way, I brought my kids here a few weeks ago. And I think a test of a playground is when your kid asks you afterwards, hey, when are we coming back? And that has been a seller. I haven't heard that from any other playgrounds the same way I've heard it from the Sparrows playground. They're like, can we go back? Okay. Any other questions? Okay, well, that was very easy. My office number, I mean, that's an easy 410-887. You all know it starts with 410-887. Mine is 0015 at the end. It's pretty straightforward. Francis has my email. I mean, I could say it, but it's like the Baltimore County emails are like super long. But I'm happy to go ahead and make sure that I have that. Also, for the newsletter, if you can't go to the website, and people are going to forget, it seems like no one's heard of the newsletter. I want to make sure that you're on it. As you know, I'm not working for a private company, so we're not selling your information. This is the government. So you can feel safe and secure in the sense that it's basic level information, so you're registered for the newsletter. You can either do it through, as I said, just simply Google Baltimore County Recreation and Parks, and as soon as you get to that website, it'll say sign up for newsletter. Or what you can do is give me, I actually had made a printout of a contact sheet so I could make sure it was done for you all, where I was going to cut your information and see if someone could just go ahead and do the registration. So if you'd like to do that, we can pass that along, whatever we're all comfortable with. I can make that sheet real quick and we'll just pass it along. Or you can go on your phone and do it. Thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you, and we have to set a date up for a tour.
Oh, I want to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all, this thing also, I think there's a lot of relevance.
Oh my gosh, this is so interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out. Really appreciate it.
Should I make that, or how do you prefer to do it? The newsletter, I don't know how,
You can send me the information, we can put it on our Facebook
okay,
page.
I can do it.
And I'll include it, I'll try next month to put it in our newsletter.
Yeah, it's actually, everyone will appreciate it once they see it. It's a huge, new thing, which has all the stuff that's going on in the town.
Do you get are you on our mail list for newsletter?
I am not.
We'll make sure we get him on our list.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. Okay, a couple more quick things. There's a sign at North Point State Park where you go in, it says Park Reservation System. We were at a meeting, Sam and Karen and I, they're from Maryland Waterways. We were at a meeting with other Hartmiller people, and the report we got from DNR was there's nothing in place for that yet. So there's really no information we can give on how that's going to work, or if it's even going to work. They're waiting for direction just as much as we're waiting to get the information back from them. So the sign's still up. Until they're told to take it down, it's going to stay up. So we'll as soon as we get information on that, we will definitely get it out to you guys. The ESP Rec Council is sponsoring Earth Day Trash Bash. They do it. They've been doing it for the last couple years. This year it's going to be on May the 4th, and they're meeting down at Fort Howard Park at 8 a.m. And they have a whole thing going on where they have teams and trying to collect trash, and whoever gets the most gets prizes, I think. But you can go as an individual. So like I say, it's a great opportunity to get out and help pick up some of the litter. And I do have to say, we had a group of volunteers on Good Friday came out to Todd's. They came to Todd's to help us, but they came to North Point State Park, and I was told there was like 90 people. We had about 15 with us at Todd's. But one of the things that if we ran out of painting the fence, which that was always a good thing to get people to do, paint that white fence, I was going to have them pick trash up. And I rode up and down North Point Road, where you normally see all that, where people ride down and just chuck it out the window. And somebody must have just hit it right before us, because there really wasn't anything. And in the wintertime, it collects, just because people aren't out and about. So whoever did that, thank you. And if we stay vigilant, we can keep up on the peninsula now. Getting to the peninsula on North Point Road, on North Point Boulevard, and the roundabouts and all that, that's another big challenge. And Ed is constantly talking to Trade Point about that. Is there anything to say?
Right.
About what they're doing?
Well, the only thing is we had asked for trash removal all up and down North Point and Spurs Point Boulevard, and the state, I had called that in too, and they came down and picked all the way down through. So I don't know, I'm curious if, I know that eventually the county or the state is going to own the road that goes all the way down through the point. And the state subcontractor picked up every piece of trash all the way down through there and looked really good. But it didn't take long for a few pieces to get out there. But somebody's been doing their due diligence. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And another thing, now you mentioned Trade Point. One of the things that we have asked them is to put a little bit of colorful plantings up at our sign. A couple years ago, they offered to take care of the landscaping. They don't do the grass cutting. That's handy Andy. We're very happy, and we really do appreciate them doing the grass cutting at the sign. But Trade Point sponsors through, what was the name of the landscape company? I keep forgetting. Ram Landscaping. They're the ones that do it. They do a great job. They said they're going to put some colorful flowers up for us, so we're looking forward to that. So I was at a MEVA meeting, which is Millers Island Edgemere Business Association, a couple months, 2 months ago, and then their last meeting. And there was an offer by Sam Himmelrich, who is a developer, or potential developer down at Fort Howard, the VA property. And at the MEBA meeting, he offered them an opportunity to tour some of his current projects that he's already worked on, different places in the city. And then he told me if anybody from our group would want to go, or really anybody from the community would be interested. So I told him I would ask, put it out there at the meeting, and if anybody's interested in seeing any of the projects that he's developed in other parts of the city, let me know, and I'll get with the MEBA folks and work something out to come up with a date. One real quick thing on the new terminal project over at Trade Point. There was a lot of backlash, and we've had people here for the last 2 months about the marinas and the removal of that property. So apparently Trade Point has heard the concerns, and they're coming up with some alternative plans whereby that property would remain intact. The agreement with the marinas is going to be between them. I'm not exactly sure, but it sounds like that whole area there with that property is going to remain what it is. I guess one of the bad things would be that the boat ramp, that if they had gone through with the original, the boat ramp probably will not happen, the public boat ramp. But anyway, we'll learn more on that as TPA submits their newest recommendations to Corps of Engineers. And because all that's going to have to go through the regulators now, they're still going to have to do their mitigation. Now, one thing I was a little disappointed to hear was that little point of land on the southern part of the property that acts as the breakwater for Fort Howard and Edgemere coming from that southwest wind, that at least part of that was going to remain, and then the property near the lighthouse, if you're familiar with Jones Creek, there's a lighthouse there, or a range light, and they're going to remove some of the land around there, and I think that was still on the table last I heard. But all that's subject to change, and as information comes out, again, we'll have more and more on that. Ed's going to give us an update now on the macadam walkway replacement. Making some good progress, so here he is.
Can I just say something about the Trade Point
Yes.
thing? We all put in our comments or whatever.
Correct.
And I had requested information from, what's his name, Aaron, about the number of contained TEUs or whatever that they're saying they're going to have down there. And he replied that they're going to have 2 million per year. At 70% will be on traffic. And when you do the math, what they were telling us was 1,500 trucks a day additional. But if you do the math, it's 3,800 trucks per day. And that's very misleading in their publications that they're putting out. It's not just 2 times what they're saying. It's more than 2 times the number of trucks they're going to put on the road. It just floors me that they can get away with that.
I'll tell you, I'll give them a shout out and see if we can get some clarification. And do you want me to have them contact you?
He's the one that told me
Okay.
at full operation 2 million,
Okay.
and they're saying 70%. I just redid the math again to make sure that I have it right, and that's 3,835 trucks on the road per day.
Okay. I'll reach out to them and
Yeah.
see if we can get a clarification on that, see what's going on. Yeah.
Hey, Fred, we're discussing the marinas down there. Is that, on the Pleasant, is that count keeping the house that's there too? If they're
I
gonna
don't
leave
think
that
nothing
alone?
moves.
What's that, it?
It's still on the table, but
Okay.
I don't think the house will be disturbed or anything.
Okay. That's my grandmother's house.
I knew it was a relation.
Yeah, my grandmother.
And so what's
For the bungalows.
also open and is changing in that plan is that they wouldn't close off that berth. What's that over there opposite of Turner's?
Coal piers,
Yeah.
coal berth or something called it.
And that is one of the points of pollution that comes out of there. That was in my hopes that would have been contained, so it would have stopped the leaching of everything into the bay. but apparently that might not happen in the new plan. So there's a couple issues and still open for negotiations or still comment from, I guess, the Chesapeake Bay.
Well, speaking on like they're gonna, if they keep the marinas, like you were saying, they're gonna hold the boat ramp at a high, so I guess not do a ramp because of that. What's going on with the one down here? The one that nobody has any idea and it's hidden and no signs. What's up with that thing?
He left.
You got any information on that?
No, he didn't. He's out there. I asked him when we met. So yes, there's a good question for him. I mean, I know he's new. He doesn't have the answer, but
It's a good place to start.
yes, it'd be great for that. And
Hey, Ryan, go ahead.
that's Ryan Park down there. Ron, that's what we call that, Ryan Park. And
It's got looking good. I'll give it.
apparently, I just keep getting the runaround on that Ron every time I ask. They don't want to, it's in everybody else's hands but the county.
Somebody's got to maintain it.
As far as the Macadam Walkway, so we got a lot of the signatures and permission to do that work. And I talked to Randy today, and he said he's just waiting for the order to come down from the director to say go ahead and start. We still are missing a few signatures. We got a couple more that we have to go out and pick up a couple more to make it 100%. And I think that they're open because it's going to be a lot of handwork. So as they do the trail, you're going to see signatures and other properties fall. So I think it'll be a good thing for the whole community. And a lot of the community was excited, so I was glad to see it and actually get out there and grab the signatures. They were very giving.
On the sidewalk that you're going to put in, I have brought to your attention before that it should be concrete, not asphalt. And if there's any storm drains need to be put in for standing water on the road, especially on Lincoln Avenue, that it should be taken care of. And when you put concrete down, it'll last forever, and it's much more beautiful. And if this was Towson down here, they would be putting in concrete. We don't need curbs because the road and the land is the way it is. We need the sidewalk to be of concrete. It'll last 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 years.
Preaching to the choir, I agree with you, but we were lucky to get what we got.
No, we still need to have what we need. If
You
this was
can't do
Towson, they would get concrete up there. In many places,
They'd have
they
gold up there.
they go along and replace different parts of different things that are concrete.
I agree with you.
The cost should be involved because we've been paying the taxes down here for X number of years, and it should be concrete, so it looks much better and uniform. When you put concrete, you make the forms, but with this blacktop, they're not gonna make forms, they're just gonna put right over top.
It'll look nice. It'll look nice. But we don't disagree with you, but it is what we're getting.
No, we have to emphasize what we want.
But this is also no cost to the homeowners. If they got sidewalks, homeowners would have a cost.
That's
And
a good point.
and I think it would be a difficult sell. So, I think.
So, but
yeah.
I want to try to move along this if you guys are interested in looking at the artifacts.
Yeah.
Okay. So dumpster day, we don't have a date. We can get a dumpster day, but we just don't have a date. I think it's going to probably be either in June or in the fall. So we're still working on that one. When we can do it, that's the thing. Because I know a couple of people on social media have asked. It really is an important thing in the community, and we're going to have one. I want to remind everybody of a new Facebook policy. So we record all our meetings. They were up there forever. Well, the new policy is they're only up there for 30 days. So if you miss a meeting and you want to know what went on and you want to watch it again, you only have 30 days. Linda records them. She copies them down, so we have them in an archive. I guess if we ever got a website.
No, I'll probably put them. I'm going to create a YouTube channel and put them on YouTube.
Okay, there you go.
But I just haven't.
If you didn't hear that, she's going to create a YouTube channel, and then you'll be able to see them on that. May the 6th is the next food truck night here at the Volunteer Fire Department. At Todd's, the next opening is May 17th and 18th. And for people with kids, it's going to be a really interesting fun day on Saturday or Sunday, huh?
Sunday.
On Sunday, that's the 18th, a group called the Ship's Company, who do reenactments as sailors. They have a little ship they bring out. They're going to do a thing at times called School of the Sailor. So they're going to be teaching kids what these sailors had to learn to be sailors back in the day. Not just show them, but teach them.
That's May?
May 18th, yep. So if you know people with kids, students, anybody like that that's interested in any maritime history, it's a great time to come out. Speaking of that, National Maritime Day is coming up, and I don't have the flyer, I left it on the table, but it's a chance to go see the John Brown and the USN Savannah, I think it is, which is a nuclear-powered passenger ship from the 60s. So their open house on both of those is free that day. It might be the 17th.
May 18th, you got no newsletter.
Oh, May 18th, okay, May 18th, okay. Same day as Todd's, so it'll be a busy day. That's about all I have, because like I said, I want to give us time to see the artifact. Yes, sir.
May I read some articles that I presented?
5 minutes at the most.
Huh?
5 minutes.
Okay. When I went to the meeting at Solars Point School down there, I had 3 minutes to say what I did, and I couldn't say any more for the items I had written. And I promised myself that I was going to rewrite it to the Dundalk Eagle and also to the Sun paper. And in the county meeting that was there, the first thing I said was cut giveaway programs, reevaluate them each year. Property tax fee for all businesses, homeowners, including apartments, is paid no matter what size of your house. Sewer bill must be based on the amount that it costs to treat the matter going to the treatment plant from the county for the amount of gallons metered. The cost of maintaining the pumping stations, maintenance, and new service rendered where needed. You pay every quarter one price, not from your water bill usage as is done today. No money goes into the general fund. The city must pay for the same for treating their matter per gallons as the county usage. A trash will put on Herring Run, emptying into Back River to catch.
They just got funding for that.
What's that?
They just got funding for that.
Yeah, and this is part of what I had mentioned to them a while back.
Good.
And whoever took the initiative for my emphasis in saying we need a trash well, I thank them. And we have to dredge Back River as it was in 1940 from Herring Run, which turns into Morris Run stream, which changes at the county line. Dredge all the way to the Chesapeake Bay. Remove all swamp areas to eliminate areas where the midgets spread. Live from east shore to the line to the west shore line. A lot of warm matter in the river from the sewage plant.
2 more minutes. 2 minutes.
When the wind causes the water to move around, it stirs up the water and it turns Back River into a brown color. The same when the boats go up and down the river. No environmental issue in this matter. When done, nature will restore it to be what it should be. It will help the fish, the crab life to live in the river, plus more tidal water will flow into the river. The neutral recite the tap water coming from the sewer plant also. A sample of water coming from the Bay Bridge each month for the salt content, put the salt in the tap water, discharge into the tidal water to make normalization from the sewer plant. Finally, no pay raises per percentage. Set only cash value per work for all civil jobs. Key Bridge at the Dundalk area there must have a southbound ramp and a ramp going north be able to go south from Dundalk over the bridge, because the appropriate will be further back. The approach will be further back from the bridge because of the length, and people should not get their way by stop calling for business services. Teachers' pay should all be the same. It was used to supplement family income years back. And as far as the midgets, my son told me that the midgets are way below the airport on the east side, and they have spray, but maybe they need to go further down on Back River, and I don't know what it's like on the west side here for the midgets. It's not helping as much as it should be.
We're seeing them at times, for sure. Well, thank you. Ryan, one thing.
Thank you for letting me say.
You're welcome. I just asked him about the boat ramp. He doesn't know anything, so he doesn't have any and no information on it. So again, guys, thank you very much for coming out. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.
Tell me MES is hiring you.
Be safe driving home. Look, if you're here.
Tell them I'll post pictures of the artifacts.
Okay, we're going to post pictures on the website, on our Facebook page. If you want to see the artifacts, come on up. Yeah. Good night.